Welcome, Overhaulics, to this episode of the Sales Call Overhaul. Today, we have Jon Buchan on with us of the Charm Offensive group, and we are so excited to have him on. Jon has been an interesting influence in the lives of several people who have influenced my outlook on marketing, and he has a tremendous sense of humor, and it comes through really, really well on camera. As you can see, he's just having so much fun right now, and I'm gonna move on from that. So what we're doing is the Sales Call Overhaul. We're doing a giveaway, an $1,100 giveaway, and send in your sales call if you want to win the $1,100 giveaway. We will take your sales call. We will not broadcast it on the air. We're experimenting with not putting sound bites on the air. So you will be secret. No one will know who you are. And you can send in your sales call. We'll give you a code word to let you know that you've won. And we will rebuild your sales call live on the air so that your sales calls will close 10 or 15% higher in just a few calls. In 3 to 5 calls, you should be able to close 10 to 15% higher with our input. So send it in, message our Facebook page, and send in your calls if you want to win that $1,100 package. We are excited about today's podcast. There's so much to talk about here, and Jason has a lot of great questions that I know we're going to get around to. So Jason, will you take us away?
Will I do the synopsis? Okay, so a few years ago, Jon here was desperate for sales. Word of mouth had dried up for his business. So he gets hellishly drunk, as he likes to describe it, and writes the most ridiculous email he can. And he's still kind of feeling a little woozy the next morning and goes, I'm going to send this to some senior marketing directors at big brands. What have I got to lose? And to his astonishment, it works. He gets lots of great complimentary responses, and hey, can we meet you? Lots of calls. And his favorite one said, my colleague forwarded me your spam email, and we would like to meet to discuss opportunities. So this weird approach has gotten in meetings with senior decision makers at Red Bull, Pepsi, Symantec, Hewlett-Packard, lots of other places, global brands and that, right? And startups, regular old small to medium-sized businesses. So we today can learn how to use the same kind of style to get other decision makers to get in front of you, to talk to you. And even with job interviews, you can use this stuff. So Jon, thanks for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You bet. One thing I wanted to start off with, in marketing, standing out is the first thing that a good marketer should do. You're bland, you're boring. But there's a lot of people who are afraid of standing out. So what do you have to say to those people who are afraid from deviating from the normal, hi, how are you, boring script?
I would, first I would say if they're doing well, then, keep doing what you're doing. But if you're not, then you need to make a change of some kind, or you're forever going to be struggling, and it's not a good place to be struggling, because if you're struggling, you'll take on any client you possibly can, and that includes the clients that nobody should take on, because they're the stern, never happy clients, and that's not a position you want to be in. You're never going to grow that way. So if you're doing well, carry on. If you're not, you need to do something different, and that's not to say that you have to be as absurd as me and go completely out there. And use the absurd humor that I do, if that's not your personality, but you need to do something. And one thing I will say is that I think some people don't think they're interesting. They think that their perspective is not interesting. And I would suggest that most people are far more interesting than they think they are. If they would just speak to people like they speak to their friends, they would find that they would have potential clients just like them that they would work really well with, waiting for them, if they would only take the chance. And when you take the chance and you start getting results, that's when it gets addictive. But it's that first part,
right?
Just getting going, that's the hard bit. But you've got to take a chance.
Yeah. let's address that fear directly. What happens when a prospect doesn't like it and kind of shoots back at you? What do you do?
Nothing. That's literally, I was really hoping you would ask that question verbatim because I wanted to answer like that. Literally nothing. Maybe I'll reply and I'll be, I'm always polite. I'm never snarky, but I never really got anyone offended or anything like that. But I've had obviously negative replies because any cold approach, whether on the phone or email or whatever it might be, you're still interrupting someone's day. And I think it's fair game. That's fair game. You're interrupting them in some way. They've not asked for this. So for me, it's like, that's fair enough. My favorite negative response I ever got was, I got an email that said, and this was probably only about a year ago, and it just said, congratulations, this is the worst sales and marketing email I've ever received. And before I could even hit reply, 2 minutes later, he followed up with, but the irony that I'm replying is not lost on me. So the thing is that the reason this stuff works is the same reason that some people don't like it. Is if you try and appeal to absolutely everyone, you appeal to nobody because you're lukewarm. There's nothing there. And you see this particularly, not to extrapolate too far, but you see this particularly with like fighters like Floyd Mayweather or Conor McGregor. They're deliberately polarizing, which is not what I do. Yeah, is you've got to really have it to show your personality. Not everyone's going to like you, and you're going to have to deal with that. And you need to deal with not being annoyed by negative responses, because if you're cold pitching, those are fair game. Like you've got to make it doesn't matter. You need to have so many of them that they're not a scarce resource anymore and they don't affect you anymore.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Build them up like a resource. Yep. That's how you get to the tough skin. Okay.
Yeah. It's, and hopefully, obviously, if you're only getting negative responses, then there's something wrong with your approach. But as soon as you get enough decent positive responses, especially some gushing ones, it becomes worth it because you're getting these and they make you feel really good. And then you get the occasional negative one. And I would say the negative responses, if you're being yourself and you're getting a few negative responses, that's good, because people often say to me, with this approach, even with my LinkedIn picture, which is the picture of me rescuing a baby and a basket of kittens from a burning building.
Right.
People say to me, aren't you worried that some people aren't going to want to do business with you because you're not professional? And I say that, well, that's not a painful side effect. That is a deliberate feature. Yep. I'm disqualifying the stern and the self-important and the bland. And I have no problem with the stern and the self-important and the bland, but I think they should work with their own kind. Like my detractors have standards, I have standards too. They're just different standards.
Yep. Yep. There's so much in this world where people are looking for the one right way to do things. Jason talks about this a lot. And a lot of times it's, no, there are 9 right ways to do it. This is my way.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, that's something I found actually is, and I've been trying to write an article on this, is this obsession with, and this probably sounds silly because I sell templates of my methodology. Is that instead of being creative, people try and find maybe the ideal webinar template or the ideal email, and they try and just optimize to get to be the best version of someone else's template, rather than taking a chance occasionally and doing stuff that people say is wrong, because you might find something that works. Because I often find, like, an example is if you search for best cold email template, you'll see every single one for all of these Google results is the same short, functional cold email template, and it seems like it's empirical. This is the way to do it. And I think when you investigate and experiment, you'll find that the confident assertions of others are by no means empirical most of the time.
That is so very tactful of you. Wow. Jason and I have found this in our own business on a very fundamental level, the not following everyone else. Yeah. We are not trying to be different in every way. We hear a lot of marketers. We always get amused when we hear a marketer saying, well, we're the first X and everybody else is ripping us off. Okay, go take a nap or something, Mr. Grumpy Pants. But when we see people that are doing something really, really well, there's a natural tendency to want to follow that, because it's like, okay, we don't have to think for ourselves here. We don't have to do it we don't have to test it. We don't have a risk of failure. We fool ourselves into thinking that we can just match that or copy that or funnel hack that or whatever people want to call it, and I'll get the same kind of results. We found that we had to alter our core business model pretty fundamentally in order to stay in a range we were comfortable with. Most people talk about, okay, the value ladder kind of thing. And so we had our sales call overhaul for $1,100, $1,800, $3,600. And then we were going to do a sales training for $6,000 or $7,000. And then we have the done for you sales teams for 25 or 45% of commissions, and et cetera. And so these things were a natural progression. They followed the normal ladders, but we didn't want to do a sales training. We've done a lot of sales trainings over time, and we just didn't have any passion for it. And so we chopped it. We just axed it. And it's made us so that we are more able to work with sales trainers. There are lots of great sales trainers out there. Why not just work with them? And so we just stepped out of their space entirely and said, okay, we're going to do our own thing and be relaxed about it. And it just brought such peace. And I see your stuff because I follow you. Jon is one of the few people that's really worth following for fun on Facebook. And so all these things, you're not getting too optimization minded about them. You do optimize, but you're willing to go out on a limb with this stuff. I mean, that's a big part of your brand there.
Yeah, well, it's part of it is I like to enjoy myself, and I found a weird combination of here of between creativity and making money. And the ideal, like pure creative, I'd make a living as, say, a novelist or something, but that's very, very hard and unlikely, and it's something to strive towards. And then there's pure business where I, become the most hyped, overhype everything, and all I want to do is make money. And I feel like I found something in the middle where it's somewhat creative, and there's the money making aspect, and I found that balance. And for me, I enjoy experimenting, and that's a good definition of creativity, is finding new ways of doing stuff that nobody else has thought of. And I enjoy the journey. As much as I'm an impatient person, I like that part of it. I'm very impulsive. And you're right, I'm not a super optimization guy. Obviously, I sense what works, and I am trying so much stuff all the time that I'm always kind of split testing. And I'm like, okay, I see what worked there. I see what worked there. And I have a vague sort of way of optimizing, but I don't study spreadsheets for hours on end. I prefer just to do so much stuff, and then I'm just doing so many tests that I'm building up an intelligence over time, what works and what doesn't. And then I've got loads of other stuff that when I get good at something, I can then teach my audience it. And because I've got something new, that's a saleable item. Whereas if I was just optimizing, what material would I be coming up with to tell people about?
Right. Cool. I love it.
I ramble on. I can't help it.
That's perfect. No.
When you're making a connection this way with a kooky email, let's say, what happens with the know, like, and trust factor that we hear so much about? I mean, it's like what I said in the beginning there. This is spam, but I love it. Let's talk, right? It's
this is one of my favorite parts of doing it this way is the responses that you get. People speak to you like a friend, and often they'll try and up the ante. They will try and out-humor you. And some of the responses I've got have been better than my original email, which I'm always happy about. But not very few. Most of them aren't lukewarm responses. And when people, the spreadsheet people who track everything down, super, everything is about the numbers. If you're just tracking response rates, I don't think that's good enough. Like, what about the sentiment of those responses? How many are just like, I can't wait to speak to you, versus, all right, then I'll give you 5 minutes in my diary. Right. There's a difference between that. And if you're able to make the best first impression, and they're laughing out loud, and they've spread it around the whole team, that's a big difference. I think getting cut through in that way is persuasive in itself. Like, you've made the best first impression you possibly can. And that is the most beneficial if you're in marketing or advertising or PR, but I think it's beneficial whatever sector you're in to make a great first impression. So, and also there have been studies there are a lot of studies about humor and marketing and persuasion. And that was one of the big factors, is that out of everything, humorous advertisements, they like people, they make people like that brand more than anything. It's like the biggest factor is the liking factor, which we all know is a principle of persuasion. People like to do business with people they like, and a humor will potentiate an already persuasive message. It will potentiate that, and self-effacing humor will make a source more credible. So there's all these factors at work that are hard to put in a spreadsheet that are at work, but I've always found them to be incredibly beneficial. Like I've been able to book meetings with people I did not deserve to be in a room with, just because I made them laugh. I can't think of any other approach that would do that.
Humor allows you to punch so far above your weight class.
In all areas of my life. And the other thing is you get remembered. So I've had people email me a year later and say, I've kept this note for a year, and finally I have a project for you. That would not happen with any other approach that I've.
Now, what if people aren't funny? Well, Jon has some answers for that, and we'll be talking about that toward the end of the show as well. He's got some great ways to work on that stuff.
Well, it kind of leads into my next question, which is, how good of a copywriter do you have to be to make cold outreach work this way?
It's a weird thing, is that I've only been selling information products for probably 12 months now. Like, I'm new to the whole being an influencer. I don't like that term, but you have to use some word, right? So I never studied copywriting. When I wrote that email, I literally got drunk and I wrote it, and then I was able to realize, oh, I'm using joke formulas. This is because I watched American stand-up pretty much mostly, and sitcoms since I was 6 or 7 years old. That's what I knew. So I'm not a trained copywriter, and I only of this year started learning direct response copywriting, which is very important for getting sales. So for me, I think you do have to write, and you need to, as I've seen in the last year, the more I write, because I've had the group, I've had to write every day, I have become a better writer. But I think anyone can be good at this. If you can write to a friend and you can make them laugh, you can write to prospects and make them laugh. It's all in your mind that you think that these people you're writing to want everyone to be so professional and scared to email. They don't at all. I've seen people that are scared to put a smiley face in their email, and it's all in your mind. You need to get rid of that, and just start doing a few every day. And I would say this: if people don't think they're good copywriters, record yourself speaking. That's a great way of getting your words out, and also just say the most honest thing you can. So that will lead to a good email. So I don't think
I like that.
Sorry?
I like that.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about if you can write something to your friend and make them laugh, you can write the same thing to your prospects and make them laugh.
Yeah.
This is man, we found that in our sales calls, even almost every sales trainer in the world will teach you have to get rapport, and they teach a section of the call, the icebreaker section at the beginning of a call to get rapport. We don't really do that anymore because we just kind of jump in with this expectation and that expectation that we are friends.
Yeah.
And we are getting rapport, but we don't have to work at it specifically because we can just jump in with both feet. Yeah. And it sounds very similar to the kind of thing that you're talking about. Just write to them like they're already your friend, and it kind of hijacks that part of their brain. And okay, now we're friends.
Yeah, and there's also when you talked about this, there was a section in the training about this is the rapport building part of the call.
Almost always,
like,
yeah.
I remember I wrote my first ebook, but this was before even Charm Offensive. This was when I was thinking it was a good idea. And I think the line I used was like, you're not trying to beat a machine at chess. You're trying to get a response from a person.
Yeah.
So this is why your way of doing it makes more sense than having a section of the call for rapport building. Just speak to people like people, because newsflash, they are. Believe it or not, CEOs, IT directors, even finance directors, they're all people. So.
Even finance directors.
So this can really cut through the no, like, and trust really fast.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I've found that it's always worked for me, and as I say, an additional benefit, it disqualifies all the people that I really wouldn't want to work with. And they're not that those people are bad people. It's just probably we won't work together. If you're a particular personality, that's good. You should work with people that are more suited to you. So it disqualifies and it qualifies, and it makes people like you that you should work with.
Yeah.
Let's get into the actual writing of one of these messages. Are you a believer in customization, or do you think you write it once and test it a little bit, and if it works, just pump that message out to your network and see what happens?
There's two parts to this. There's a few different parts to this. So when I first started doing this, when I found this by accident, I literally didn't change a word of the email, and they weren't personalized other than the first name for years, because it just worked so reliably. I didn't send follow-ups even. But here's what I would say is, if you've got a high, say your minimum retainer is a decent amount, it's a few thousand a month, dollars, pounds, it makes sense to personalize more, because the more something is personalized, it just checks off that part of the brain that no matter how funny an email is, people can detect, like, oh, this has gone to loads of people. Like, it's almost like, oh, I bet you say that to all the girls. Kind of like, that's the part of it. And that checks that off. Just that little bit of extra personalization, you will get a higher response rate the more personalized an email is. But saying that, you can have success just contacting loads more people, and you will get enough client meetings. But I think my opinion on this has changed. I think you should customize more, because you could contact less people, because you should be picking who you want to work with. You shouldn't just be casting your net and then going, I've got these meetings, I'll close those and I'll work with them. No, you should pick who you want to work with, like the sectors, the types of client. And so I think it makes more sense to have a more customized approach. But saying that, if you do have a lower ticket item, say what you offer is you've got $100, I don't know, you make explainer videos and they're $100 each. Mm-hmm. You probably can't do that because it doesn't scale. So you have to come up with a charming message and send it to loads of people. So my opinion on that is nuanced. There's a benefit to customization. Not everyone can do it. I recommend it if you are selling something higher ticket. I think it makes sense to customize.
Yeah. So the places where it really matters who your clients are, I agree. That needs to be customized more. If you're selling something that's an information product and you don't really care who the client is, anybody can get benefit up to it. You just leave it up to them. Yeah. But when you're spending your time with these people, when they need to be a good fit with you personally, man, that's a great place for qualification.
Because you should be deciding who you work with and not just what comes in. And if you're selling higher ticket stuff, you're going to be doing more one-to-one stuff with them. You should be pickier, and you can be.
Yeah.
Let's get back to humor.
Sure.
Let's. Yes.
Humor.
Correct.
In the sales training that I received 15 years ago, I was told don't use humor because it can be easily misunderstood. Does that happen fairly often, or just once in a while? If they get offended and they blast back at you, obviously you've said you do nothing. Just ignore it and move on.
Well, they're not offended. It's just, because although the name is Charm Offensive, the term Charm Offensive doesn't have anything to do with offense. So like my type of humor is either I'm poking fun at myself, or I'm just being patently absurd, or I am poking fun at something I know that is troubling them, to build rapport. So there's I never use, but it's all about the target. The target of the humor. Like if you're mocking the client, they could get offended, because like this person doesn't know me and they're cold pitching to me and insulting me, and that's not going to come off well. The other type of humor that doesn't work, there's two types. One is when people do the pretend cocky thing, and people don't realize that you don't have the benefit of intonation in an email. You can use italics and formatting and stuff, but if you could do the fake cocky, it can just come off as, oh, that guy's arrogant as hell. Like, I don't like this guy. So you have to remember, you got to look through, can any of this be misinterpreted? And often it's that fake cocky thing. I understand what people are trying to do, but you've only got text, you've not got voice. And the third one is using references that either too niche, so you make referencing some really nerdy thing that you and your friends know. That's not going to work with the whole world. And also choosing references and assuming that people have the same opinion of you. So a big one on this would obviously be Trump or Hillary. Making those assumptions, you're going to split your audience. So don't pick references that are divisive. Just stick to either mocking yourself, being absurd, and just making sure what you're writing isn't going to be misinterpreted, and you're going to be okay. People may be confused at what you're writing, but they're not going to be offended.
Yeah. Now, there are some people that might say, well, I only want people who will understand the in-jokes of this industry.
Yeah.
And they'll say that they're trying to qualify using this joke. I've seen some people do that kind of thing, and they're getting a little bit nerdy, and it really just seems to me like they've fallen in love with the joke and they don't want to let it go because it's their baby now.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, the reason I use this stuff is to make money at the end of the day. You want to go and be a comedian, go and be a comedian. But at the end of the day, you're doing this to make money. It's advice to get people's attention and get to book meetings. So if you want to cast your net far less wide, you will have to deal with the consequences of that, which is you're going to get far less meetings. So
we're all about consequences here.
So perhaps it's that's a decision for people to make, but there are choices and there are consequences. So
yeah.
Speaking of niche, I want to know who that is on your shirt.
I have no idea. Someone left this T-shirt at my house. I think so. I
thought it was Galen Ross from Dawn of the Dead or something.
I don't know, actually. I will ask Asher. I think my friend left it, and I don't know.
We'll have to find out. All right.
Literally, I was in like a grubby T-shirt before this recording, and I was like,
I'm glad you changed that.
Nice.
Mystery girl shirt.
There was a question from the audience a moment ago about the difference between a funny body of an email versus the subject line itself.
Yeah.
What do you find you have to do differently with those? I mean, because obviously the goal of every line is to get someone to read the next line or to take the next action there.
Yeah. I always I reused a subject line for years that I really liked. Is that as I thought about it this way, is I'm trying to get people's attention, and then what do I know? I know that they don't know my name. When they see my name, they're going to get that's a stranger. So I was like, how do I take advantage of that with the subject line? So it's not a weakness, it's a strength. Right. So my subject line for ages was apologies in advance, because people are going to be like, okay, why is this stranger apologizing to me?
Oh, I like that.
That would work really well. So I would always do that kind of stuff, just a bit weird, and get their curiosity. It's all obviously curiosity based.
Yeah.
And I know that is a copywriting technique, but that's what I would go for. And I'd have other things like blatant clickbait. And this is the weirdest cold pitch you'll get all day, and just very curiosity-based stuff. So just to try and get their attention, especially if they're on a phone, you've got the subject line, your name, and the first line. And just get intrigue is what works there, I would suggest.
I like that. We see a lot of emails come through that are, I think they're trying to be curiosity-based, but they come across more like a threat. Like access revoked or something like that.
Sorry, payment declined.
Right, exactly. They're trying to clickbait you, but it's all about the.
Sorry.
Well, what you're doing there is just very different in concept from what they're doing, even though on a surface level you could say it's the same thing. It's very different approach.
The apologies in advance. It makes sense, because I start sort of I start the first few lines are kind of not apologizing that I'm sending a cold email, but that's what I'm talking about. So the subject line still makes sense with the body, and that's the difference. When you get our meeting, a few seconds later, they're going to know, oh, that was a trick. And or unless you're just emailing loads of people with amnesia or something. So
who's your target market? Amnesiacs who are CEOs.
It's like you're going to infuriate, unless you're really funny. That is going to, unless you call out the RE hour meeting, you've got to be really funny. Like, even if you called that out in the body, I don't think you could be funny enough to reduce the irritation. Like, oh, you pest, you know?
Right. the whole thing about being charming with this kind of game is so that people are appreciating reading it. They're enjoying it, not reluctantly going, oh, okay, well, I made it to the end. Now I'm done.
Yeah. Meant to be disarming them, not arming them.
Yes. You're not trying to turn on their security system for them before you break into their house. Yeah, okay, I like that.
Unless you're a really good salesman, you've like achieved all your goals and you just want to make it harder for yourself.
Right.
Let's talk about direct mail for a moment. You have sent letters out with similar content to your emails. Do you do anything different with that distribution method of direct mail?
I love direct mail because you can't, a prospect, when they've got that in their hands, they can't scroll from it or click on another tab. Or I used to send, when I first started doing it, and this is kind of funny, this shows how I didn't look at any training or anything, because when I was sending the emails, I was getting like a 30% or 35% or 40% open rate. Mm-hmm. Loads of responses, but naturally I was like, how do I improve this? I didn't think send follow-ups to the people that hadn't replied. I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll send something in the post. And then, so I used to send the email, obviously, with the ferret with the bunny ears as an attachment, like really stupid, absurd attachment. Yeah. So I started sending it as a letter, and then there'll be a sticker with the ferret with bunny ears. And, with the hashtag found the ferret, which if you search on Twitter, you'll see loads of people that have put these stickers in their offices. And then I would follow up with an email 3 days later, and the subject line was sorry for the ferret in the post. So they're getting it references the weird item you sent in the post, and my open rates are like 80%. So that's one thing I would do. If I was to do it again, I don't think the copy changes so much as sending postcards is what I would do now, because they don't even have to be opened.
Right.
It just seems even more effective. So there is a difference between, I do change copy, say I'm writing a Facebook ad or a social media post versus a cold email. But I can't think of, the only thing I can think of is when I used to send direct mail pieces, and I used this very typewriter style font. There was no images at all, typewriter font, and I would call that out. Like, I apologize for sending you this very ugly looking letter, but I needed to get your attention. So I usually call out the tactics that I'm using, and some of those are specific to direct mail. But that's probably the only change in copy that I would use.
I like that.
Interesting. In cold outreach, one of the chief issues that you have to overcome is finding the decision maker. Who am I going to send this thing to? So do you have any recommendations to help ensure that people find the right person to send the message to?
Yeah. There's one particular piece of advice on this, which is I know that there's a lot of people that think always about going to the very top. They always think, I'll just go to the top. And then my message they will tell the marketing director, say, that they need to have a meeting with me. The problem with that is you'll get loads of people that think they have autonomy that are then forced to do meetings with you. And that's not going to be a good meeting. I'm doing this meeting because my boss told me to. Don't do it. It's already not a good conversation. Like, some people would be okay for it because some people are very amiable and okay, but there'll be a good percentage. Like, I imagine if I was in that situation, because I'm not a particular fan of authority, I'd be like, okay, I'll do this meeting, but this is not something I've booked. So I could tell that would irritate me. So I would say find the most senior person you can in the right department. So if it's marketing director, sales director, business development director, find the right head of your department. If a company is smaller, obviously you can go right to the top, but that's my advice there. And then finding their details, there's all manner of LinkedIn is so good now. LinkedIn is brilliant for finding people because of the amount of granular type searches you can do. It's really effective for that kind of stuff.
So people should have a professional account.
Definitely, yeah. Just for the best. I spend, I think, is it £70 or dollars a month for the LinkedIn sales premium membership?
Sales Navigator, I think.
That one search filter, which is time in role. Because I've always said the right words to the right people can get you anywhere. It's the right time that's hard. If you can find people that have been in a job less than 90 days, they've either been promoted or they've changed jobs. So they're likely to want to hear from new ideas, from new suppliers. So there's your right time sorted. And I literally spend £70 a month just for that search filter, because you get that's one time trigger. So LinkedIn Sales Navigator is exceptional. And it's hopefully it'll just get better.
Yeah.
People who have experienced a change in roles recently.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't have the inertia. Someone that's been in a job 6 years, they're comfortable. Because, not everyone that's, say, a marketing director. And here's something I had to realize was that I would have potential clients that really didn't give a shit about the performance of their department. As long as things were okay.
Yep.
And I would I would keep these clients that I really wasn't doing that great work for because they weren't really doing their bit. And it used to annoy me. Whereas if you find someone that's just been promoted or just got a new job somewhere, they're more likely to want to hear new ideas and from new suppliers. And I've found that, I can't say that I've tested it and I've got the data, but it seems to have borne out for me that I always got better responses when I contacted people that have just had that trigger moment. Probably because they're on probation period and they do need to impress.
Yeah. Oh, and when there is somebody that's been in their role for 6 years, say, then they may or may not be doing a great job. But if they are doing a great job, they've already got their preferred providers. They don't have any holes in their network. They're not missing anything after that amount of time.
Yeah. So it's not to say that
I love that.
They still might reply. Like, obviously, a good reproach, you can get the attention of anyone. But I would say if you get that right time bit sorted, and LinkedIn allows that with that search filter, it's far easier to get people to reply because they just naturally in that frame of mind where they've just made a change and they want to shake things up. You can benefit from that.
This is interesting. I didn't realize we'd be talking about this kind of thing because we've been talking about LinkedIn and about cold emails and about direct mail. What kind of outreach do you typically help people learn how to do? All of those and more, or
yeah. It's to be honest, this is the cool thing about the charm offensive methodology or whatever you want to call it is that it applies to anything, not only media types. I remember Dave Trott is one of the few people I really look up to. He's an advertising guy, won loads of awards, really successful, and he breaks everything down in a real simple way. He's not pretentious in any way, and he drew on a whiteboard. Here's cave paintings, here's radio, here's newspaper ads, here's radio ads, here's TV ads, here's social media, here's display ads. It drew a line, and then in the middle, there's the person, the target. And he's like, what? That never changes. These are just delivery mechanisms. So I've had loads of people say to me, like, because the GDPR legislation that's coming in, like, oh, isn't this going to ruin your business? You're all about cold email. I'm like, no, not at all. That's a delivery mechanism. This works on LinkedIn. Social media, it works direct mail, it works on email, it works on Facebook ads, it works on chatbots. A style of writing that disarms people. And that will work if I scroll something on pencil or if I do it in augmented reality. It will work on all different types. And obviously there are changes when you do use different media types. But sense of humor is never going to go out of fashion. It's going to always work until we, for some reason, evolve that we don't like humor. I don't think that's ever going to happen. It's always going to be effective. So that's one of the cool things. It works on all media types and for all different purposes. You want to book sales calls, you want to get journalists to reply to you, you want to get people to events, you want to get job interviews, you want to speak to people you really look up to. It works for all those different reasons. So that's one of the cool benefits is that there's no media type it won't work on, and there's no ask it won't work on. And that's really cool. That
is a great point. I was talking with someone about using humor and etc. And they said, well, I can see how that would work with $100 ebook, but I'm talking to CEOs.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I think this is going to work with them too. I think they're going to appreciate it. The more yes men someone has, the more they'll appreciate a voice that stands out.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't want to be spoken to like they're on I'm sure there are a very small percentage, but most people just want to be, they don't want to be put on a pedestal. And I always say this, like, people say, oh, that's all well and good for you, John, but in marketing or creative, but that won't work on CEOs or it won't work on IT directors and I'm like, no one becomes, say, the CEO of Red Bull and then says, you know what, I don't like to laugh anymore. That's when I wasn't successful.
I'm going to become a stodgy bastard.
Yeah, it's absurd. So people, I think, I don't know if it's people want to make excuses or they have, it's
Yes.
a perception in their mind or they're making excuses. No, there is no, I did a real like sarcastic post when I started Charm Offensive, and I listed the types of people it wouldn't work on, or the types of beings. And I was like, won't work on dead people or deities or mutants or mythical creatures. And I really labored the point. It was kind of completely smug, but I just wanted, I kept getting this objection. And I don't know why people have this belief that, CEOs, I don't know, there's a weird hierarchical thing going on. And
I think a lot of this is because people are scared of cold outreach.
Yeah.
And so they're used to it being very difficult. They're used to it being a pain in the ass in this way, that way, the other way. Not just the paperwork of tracking who you're talking to and et cetera, but really just the dread of rejection or failure, or there are a lot of things that people get worked up about.
And I think in a because we've talked about some of the negative aspects, I think one positive reason is I think people do want to show respect, and that maybe is a good reason for it.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But what I would say to that is there's nothing disrespectful about trying to make the best first impression possible. And also a lot of the people that like when I got the deal with Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, the marketing director there replied to me and she says, I never reply to these. I don't even reply to most of my normal email from my colleagues, let alone spam. And it wasn't in spite of the way he wrote to me. It was because of the way he wrote to me. People like to, there is something about there's definitely a psychological thing about people like to do favors for people, and they like to recognize new talent, and they like to think, I gave that guy a chance.
Yep.
There's something there that you're tapping into when you're a go-getter. People like to support that. They like to support people that want it. And you've got to show that, and you can't show that with a bland, generic, lack of personality email.
Right.
John, how do you do with referrals? Do people get an email from you and go, well, I've been in my job for 6 years. This isn't for me, but Fred over here, hey, Fred, you got to see this, right?
Yeah,
and that comes back to you.
Yeah, I used to remember when I used to look at my, because obviously I had tracking, and I used to look at some emails, and I was like, it was clearly been forwarded around because my individual tracking software, when you can track who's opened and replied, and it was like, it just kept getting opened, but it was so much that I was like, okay, this has been forwarded. And I'd often find that someone would email me and say, yeah, you emailed us, my friend who works at Orange or whatever the company was. She can't help you because she's in, long contracts. But yeah, we would like to work with you though. So that happens. That's another benefit actually, is if you'd use a funny approach, not only does it get forwarded around the office or forwarded to colleagues, often people will post your stuff on social media. So if you search for hashtag Pound the Ferret, people used to put my letter up and the stickers and stuff like that, which at the time infuriated me because I was like, this is my magic trick, don't tell the world. But now it's obviously massively beneficial. So that's another benefit.
And that was when John learned what a hashtag was.
It works really well.
Other people are too scared to use it. So
yeah,
if it's posted online, they won't copy it.
Yeah, well, it's now it's great because it's people. When I did a post on Reddit on the entrepreneur section and on the copywriting section and on the sales section, the startup section, and no crafty tactics or anything, went to the top of each one. And one of the big reasons is the proof was just insurmountable. I was like, here's the proof this works. There was links to 4 tweets that show, I got this letter today and it's amazing. So it was just impossible for people. Even the most ardent cynic couldn't deny that this worked. So anyway, there's a little tangent there. Sorry.
I love it. Yeah.
A lot of people, when they're getting their prospect list together, really slow themselves down by feeling that they have to research and know everything about their prospect. And that. Do you recommend doing research? How deep an individual do you dig? You could do that.
I can't say that I do. First off, as I say with everything, I caveat everything with, obviously there are circumstances where that is maybe necessary. But I've always found that some people get this wrong and they'll do things like, oh, you love kayaking, I love kayaking as well. And it just comes off completely phony and silly. I haven't found it as because I don't write to pain points. Like the reasons my email works are not the sales parts. The reason it works is the opener, which makes them disarms them and makes them smile, makes them laugh. And then the way I ask for a call is sugar-coated in a way that makes them smile and laugh. And what I do, there's just enough in there that makes it relevant, so they're not taking a call for no reason. I have an offering that they can use, but that's not the reason why my emails work. My approach works because it's written in a way that writes to humans, not imaginary pain points. The closest thing analogous to this is in economics, when people talk about econs, these pretend rational beings that they're talking about. I think you do this with writing to pain points. You've created this client avatar of this imaginary person, which may be a useful exercise, but that's not why my emails work. My emails work because of all the other stuff, and the bit that sells is just so there's a relevant offer in there. So, but I will say, so I never used to do that because I knew what my offer was. And I knew that if I email the right people with the right job title, it's going to be relevant to them. So I wouldn't spend ages researching. But I understand that in some cases, I can only say for what's worked for me. Maybe it's relevant. I just never done it. This infuriates people, by the way, that spend ages, like 4 hours on every email. And I think this is the reason people go, well, that won't work on that, or that won't work on that, because it's really irritating when I go, yeah, I just personalize the first name. Yep. It must be kind of annoying. But yeah.
People get very married to ideas, and a lot of them don't bother to connect them with reality. Yeah. But reality always trumps an idea every single time.
Yeah, I completely agree. I had this, by the way, I had this idea when I started my charm offensive, and I was selling information products, so I had to learn direct response copywriting, because to get people to buy is very different to get people to hit reply. And so as much as I blended my style, which is disarming, with direct response, which is to get people to buy, I remember I had this thing, and I even sent an email out where I was like, I'm not going to use scarcity to get people to buy. And I had this real, like, highfalutin opinion. And very quickly I realized, like, all right, I probably might need to use scarcity. So you've got to change.
It has to be real, but it does have to be there.
Yeah, so I changed my opinion on that pretty quick, because reality hit. And I was like, okay, I was wrong there. So yeah, reality. What matters is what works. Nothing else matters.
Yeah, I've had to change my opinion on so many things where I got a little bit too highfalutin with a sales process, or with a pitch I was using, or something like that. Then just okay, I've got 50 data points that say no. Okay, it's gone. Bye.
Yeah. At a certain point, you've either just got to continue to be delusional forever, or you can start making money.
Or you can make money.
Yeah.
Not both.
So tell us about the Facebook group. It's called Charm Offensive. It's on Facebook. People can search for it. What happens in there?
It's great, by the way.
Yeah, it's there's a whole range. When I started, it was just me posting, as you'd expect, and there's a whole range. There's me posting content that's hopefully useful enough that people can just take it and they can start getting results with it. There's lots of funny examples of funny ads and funny copy. So I curate stuff, that anything that furthers my message and helps people think in a different way, I will post. And then other people obviously contribute their own. So they'll put their copy up and get feedback. They'll post their own things that they've found that make them laugh. It's a real weird little community. And the other cool thing is people post their results. So when I first started the group, I helped a lot of people for free, one-to-one even, because I realized that posting my screenshots of my results was all well and good, but that's going to get boring after a while. So I helped loads of people for free when I first started. So they started posting their results, and now I've just got this constant stream of social proof, which allows me not to be very hypey because everyone else is doing it for me.
Right.
And that's really cool. And that also motivates other people to take the chance to try this stuff. So that's really cool. So it's a real cool little mishmash, weird niche that I've created for myself. And loads of free info. You'll laugh. And if you want to ask advice or get a critique, you can do that as well. And I can't believe my stupid sense of humor has been monetizable, but it has.
Nice. Now you have a giveaway, a mini guide.
Yes.
That is there's no opt-in for it.
Yeah.
There's a link. Tell us about
it. Basically it's, I think there's 7 or so techniques in there that you can use immediately. So there's no, I always hate it. And this like long theoretical, like lead magnets usually. There's theoretical stuff and there's blatant parts of the jigsaw not there. And I know why that is. I've even got some of those lead magnets myself. But this one I just decided to put together and just to be immediately useful. It's like a direct mail tactic in there. There's some LinkedIn stuff. There's some loads of stuff people can use today to book meetings. And that's what I like to do, is that anyone at any level can use that, and they can change their circumstances very, very quickly.
It gets straight into actionable, not even advice. It's just instructions for making this work for you. I really like it.
And it's part virtuous that I like. I like helping people, but there is a self-interested part of that. Is those people that make money from that, I imagine they're going to come and spend that money with me. So there's obviously the self-interest and the virtuous all interlocked there.
That's the best. Why do something for one reason when you can do it for three reasons?
Exactly. Exactly.
So how do people get that?
I believe there's a link. I can't remember the exact.
Okay, I'm going to read this link, and you tell me if I get it wrong. It's charm-offensive.co.uk/guides/B-2B-sales-mini-guide.
Rolls right off the tongue.
Yes, it does. I think we'll try and embed that in the video or something like that. Or
that would be good.
Yeah.
or just actually go to charm-offensive.co.uk/blog, and I think it's probably the first post.
Gotcha. All right.
That probably might be better.
And if you go to Jon's group, if you go to his Charm Offensive group on Facebook, then I'm sure he'll have some way of getting it from inside the group, or some bot that's hooked up to his Facebook page, or you can ask for it or something. That it's a great group. You ought to be in that group if you do any cold outreach at all. Jon is the most, I cannot say he's the best because I have not researched every cold outreach trainer, but he is the most fun cold outreach trainer I have ever seen. So if you're trying to, what's that?
That reminds me of I wrote an ebook about content marketing, and my favorite review was, "This is the funniest book on content marketing I've ever read."
I've never read such a hilarious book on concrete before. Any topic can be spiced up a little bit when you just be yourself, and you stop being afraid to let yourself out there. I think that's a big part of why people do a lot of that deep research, and why they do a lot of the I have to be a certain way. Do you want clients that are going to be hard for you to work with all throughout your relationship? Come on. If you want somebody that's fun to work with, get somebody who's fun at the beginning. This is how to do that, people. Go hang out with Jon and he'll show you how.
Unless you're a masochist, in which
okay. Different target market. Yes. True.
Charm Offensive. I'm really happy how it's taken off. It just keeps getting crazier, and I wonder what it's going to be like. I never predicted any of this. I started it on a complete whim, and who knows where it's going to be in a year or 2 years, or we will see. Yep.
Well, stick around after we do our outro, because I want to talk about how we can work together and stuff like that. So I'm interested.
Fantastic.
All right.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. It's been
thank you very much for having me.
Yeah.
Jon Buchan of Charm Offensive has been our guest. That there is Jeremy Pope. I am Jason Canigan. Join us next week for a fellow named David Blanchard, who Jeremy knows, and I don't really. He has some kind of personality test or something?
I'll tell you about him then. He is the CEO of the Augmandino Association.
Augmandino.
He is the boss of the whole thing. And so they do habitfinder.com.
Okay.
And so he's going to be talking to us about Habit Finder and kind of the sort of things that we can learn from your sales personality, and the problems you might have in sales, and the problems you might have with cold outreach and stuff like that. So it's a great little test, and I've done it myself, and it's really interesting. But he's going to be going over some of that with us on the air and kind of showing you how to do that. But this is a man who cares so deeply that it's fascinating to listen to him, just because you can hear it in everything he does. He cares so deeply about what he's doing.
Yeah. Awesome. I will begin this day with love in my heart. Right. After the rest of my life, from the greatest salesman in the world by all means.
Yep.
That's a good 20 years ago that I read that for the first time too. Awesome. If you are a coach, trainer, info product creator, and have an offer at $1,000 or a higher price point, and you're recording your sales calls, go to our page, facebook.com/salescalloverhaul, and message the bot. Upload your sales call. You could win our $1,100 overhaul product.
$1,100?
$1,100, or you could give us the money, and we could do it.
That's true.
I like money.
Yeah.
Anyway, the people who have gotten our feedback and have acted upon it have done very, very well.
We always increase their close rates. Every single time they send in calls, I've never not been able to, is that enough double negatives in one sentence? I've never not been able to increase someone's close rate with one of these sales call overhauls since the first one we ever did back in 2016.
Right.
So do your best, folks. Do your best.
Yes.
Right. And remember, we're gonna keep it anonymous.
Oh yeah, we're not going to be doing sound bite. We're trying it out, not doing sound bites for a while to see if that reduces the anxiety level of sending in sales calls. So we're not going to broadcast these. We're just going to role play through them. We're going to reenact your sales call without your name on it. Yeah. So
all right.
That's how it goes. Our producer is. We're scaring him with how complicated we're going to make something here. All right.
Thank you, Empson, for producing this show.
Yes, sir.
None of you can see him, but I can.
Yeah.